Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive right into an absolute mind-bending mystery of nature: how animals navigate across the globe using Earth's invisible magnetic field. We are looking at some seriously fascinating research today that finally decodes one of biology's best-kept secrets. It's a story of survival, instinct, and a hidden grid that literally surrounds us all. Think about it. These incredible creatures have mastered a global navigation system right from birth that we humans are still struggling to perfectly replicate with all of our modern technology. Honestly, it kind of puts our own GPS to shame.
So, I want you to picture this. Imagine being dropped right in the dead center of the Atlantic Ocean. You have absolutely zero landmarks, no mountains, no trees, no sun if it happens to be cloudy. Just endless, featureless water in literally every direction. How exactly do young animals, like these tiny sea turtle hatchlings or juvenile salmon, know where to go? I mean, how do they avoid swimming off into dangerously cold waters when they've never, ever been in the ocean before?
To solve this puzzle, we have to look at a force that has been with us since the very dawn of life on this planet: Earth's ever-present magnetic field. As noted in some incredibly comprehensive research from the Lohmann lab, life literally arose in this magnetic field. Sure, it's waxed, waned, and shifted over the eons, but it has always been there, from the highest mountain peaks down to the deepest ocean trenches. It is the ultimate, omnipresent backdrop to all of biology.
Section 1. Earth's invisible magnetic grid. Let's uncover the physics behind this hidden navigational grid that covers our planet.
Okay, so before we go any further, the crucial thing we need to wrap our heads around is the difference between an animal using a magnetic compass simply to find a direction versus using a magnetic map to know its exact geographic position. A compass just tells you which way is north. And hey, that's great for walking in a straight line. But a map? A map tells you where you actually are relative to where you want to be. Having a true magnetic map is a massive evolutionary superpower because it gives an animal its actual X and Y coordinates on the globe.
Now, what's really wild about this is the geometry of the Earth's field itself. Just like our human-made latitude and longitude lines, Earth's magnetic field creates a bi-coordinate grid. When you look at how the contoured lines wrap around the globe, there are essentially two distinct parameters wrapping around the planet that animals can read: inclination and intensity. Let's break those down real quick. Inclination measures the angle of the magnetic lines intersecting the Earth. Right at the equator, these lines are totally flat, running completely parallel to the surface. But as you move toward the poles, they get steeper and steeper until they plunge straight down at a 90-degree angle. Meanwhile, intensity measures the total strength of the field, which is strongest near the poles and weakest near the equator. But here's the kicker: they don't vary in exactly the same way. By pairing a specific inclination angle with a specific intensity, almost every single spot on Earth gets a totally unique magnetic signature. It's literally an invisible address.
Section 2. The sea turtle breakthrough. For a really long time, the idea of animals having this internal magnetic map was highly controversial.
It sounded like straight-up science fiction. That is, until researchers looked closely at Florida loggerhead hatchlings. These tiny creatures face incredibly high stakes right out of the egg. They migrate offshore and have to stay within a very specific warm-water circular ocean current called the North Atlantic Subtropical Gyre. If they mess this up and stray out of the gyre, they end up in dangerously cold waters and die. They spend their early years just riding this giant luke before eventually returning to the North American coast.
So to test it, these little guys actually had an internal magnetic map, keeping them inside this massive ocean highway. The Lohmann Labs set up a truly ingenious experiment. They built an intricate magnetic coil system surrounding a water tank. Inside, they placed a juvenile turtle wearing a soft harness tethered to a tracking device.
Using those coils, the researchers ask a brilliant what-if question. What happens if we trick them? What if we change the magnetic field in the tank to simulate oceanic locations far away from their actual physical location? Basically, they didn't move the turtles an inch. They just changed the invisible magnetic environment around them to mimic the exact inclination and intensity found at different borders of that massive ocean gyre.
And the results? Absolutely jaw-dropping. When exposed to a simulated magnetic field mimicking the northern boundary of the gyre, the hatchlings automatically swam south. When exposed to the southern boundaries field, they swam northeast. They automatically swam in the exact directions they needed to go to stay safely within the warm water current. And remember, these were hatchlings. They had never even been in the ocean yet. They literally inherited this map from birth.
Section 3. Inherited maps versus goal navigation. This brings us to a really fascinating divide in how different animals use this grid.
So there are two main types of magnetic map usage, depending on an animal's age and experience. On one hand, you have inherited magnetic maps. These are used by first-time migrants, like our turtle hatchlings, relying entirely on innate genetic responses to regional fields. It basically acts like a series of geographic tripwires. On the other hand, you have goal navigation. This is used by older, veteran animals who rely on learned information to pinpoint exact specific targets, like their favorite foraging grounds or the specific beaches where they nest.
We actually see these inherited maps in fish as well. Take juvenile pink salmon. The hatchery-reared fish tested here had never once been out in the wild ocean. Yet, when scientists exposed them to magnetic fields replicating their future migratory path all the way up near Alaska, they correctly oriented themselves toward the southwest. That is the exact heading they would need to take in the wild. It's literally pre-programmed survival software.
Section 4. From oceans to ponds. Let's see how this scales down, because this invisible superpower isn't just for epic transoceanic migrations.
It functions beautifully in incredibly localized neighborhoods, too. Take the Caribbean spiny lobster. They forage at night and return to very specific crevices to hide during the day. When scientists captured them, displaced them in completely dark tanks, and then magnetically simulated being north or south of their capture site, the lobsters accurately reoriented themselves toward home. This actually makes the spiny lobster the only invertebrate presently known to fulfill the strict criteria of true navigation, meaning they can assess their location relative to a goal without any familiar landmarks whatsoever.
Astonishingly, even the tiny red-spotted newt relies on this grid. Now, you might think a map based on a global magnetic field is way too broad for short trips, right? But these little newts, navigating just a few kilometers between local ponds, are entirely capable of reading minute variations in magnetic inclination to find their way back home. It really proves just how highly sensitive biological magnetoreception truly is.
Section 5. The magnetic pull of home. This powerful drive to return to a specific pond or a specific den points to one of the most remarkable uses of the magnetic map in all of biology.
It's called natal homing, also known as philopatry. This is the phenomenal ability of animals like sea turtles, salmon, and birds to imprint on the magnetic signature of their birthplace, travel thousands of miles away for years, and then somehow return back to that exact same area as adults to reproduce.
Because coastal areas have those unique pairings of inclination and intensity we talked about earlier, animals essentially memorize this magnetic address when they're young. Years later, a mature sea turtle will literally swim along a coastline until it bumps right into the exact magnetic signature of the beach where it hatched. But here is the catch. Earth's magnetic field isn't static. Because of a phenomenon called secular variation, these magnetic isolines are constantly slowly shifting over time. The map is literally moving.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound thought to take away from this explainer today. As our planet's magnetic field continues to drift, and as secular variation alters the very coordinates of this invisible grid, how will these magnificent animals adapt? Their entire survival depends on an ever-changing invisible map. Will their innate programming evolve fast enough to keep up with a shifting Earth? It's a question that keeps scientists endlessly curious, and I hope it leaves you marveling at the hidden forces connecting life on our planet. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the unseen world around you.